This time out in the podcast, I spoke to Ross Stewart, frontman of the Mardous, who were kicking about the scene and the noughties with the Libertines, the Paddingtons, the Cribs, the others, all those sort of bands. They were signed to Poptones before things went quiet and the band ended up splitting. Ross moved to Spain, happened to bump into Amy Jo Docherty, formed a wee collective with Amy Jo before moving back to Margate. And with the 20th anniversary of the Mardous coming up, the band decided to start releasing all the tunes that never get released. Ross is posting updates on Instagram of the diaries that he kept at the time. And I've been out playing some gigs. Easter Sunday they played with the Paddingtons. Ross also exclusively revealed that this summer they're going to be playing some gigs with the Cribs and the Paddingtons as well. So we spoke about all this plus tons more. It's a brilliant story of a band that I missed at the time, but will certainly not be missing going forward. And as usual at the end, Ross got to pick his heroes as well. I hope you're all enjoying the podcast. Please keep liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing. But more importantly, enjoy. On the podcast today, I have Ross Stewart, frontman of the Mardous, who were kicking about in the noughties round about the Libertines time. Big into that scene, pals with the Cribs, the Paddingtons, the others, all that scene. Unfortunately, I wasn't aware of them at the time, and I'm just kind of finding them now. They're back for their 20th anniversary, and they're actually releasing music. So we're going to speak about all of that, but before that, Ross, what I like to do is go right back to the start.
That's good.
What was life like for a young Ross Stewart growing up, firstly?
Well, first of all, Martin, thanks very much for having me on tonight. It's much appreciated. What was life like? Well, obviously, you can tell by my accent, Scottish, and I'm born in East Kilbride. At a young age, moved to sort of Perthshire in the centre of Scotland. But I've actually spent most of my days down in England. So I went to school a bit in England, and then I did a bit of studying in my teenage years up in Edinburgh, but the majority has been spent in London. So desperately trying to hold on to my accent, but yeah.
You're doing a good job at that, mate. Don't worry, you're doing a good job at
that. Thanks very much. Proud of that. But I was in the first band I was in was called the Gents, and they were a sort of Edinburgh band, and we signed to a wee label called Lithium Records. And but even in the Gents, like, we did all right, but a lot of the success we had was just by chance down in England. We sort of did a lot down here. So I ended up moving down here and started the Mardous with Ben, who's an Aberdonian.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and initially Lewis, who's Welsh actually, but a sort of London lad, and now Stevie, so I think people are quite confused when they meet us, like, where are you from? Because we're all a bit different, you're a London band. We're like, aye, we're from London, right? And they're like, what?
Where the Gents, is that the band? Did you play Tea in the Park?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that would have been. Let me see. Oh, now you're asking. I don't know what year that would have been. That would have been like, it was mid-90s anyway.
Right.
So we played Tea in the Park. I was looking through just before you came on, Martin. I was looking through some of your other podcasts. I've listened to a handful of them, but I'm catching up myself. I saw you interviewed like Jim Gellertley.
Yeah.
Jim and us go way back, because he would sort of play the Gents.
Right.
And we played like when it was like XFM. We did the sessions for Jim and stuff, and he was quite good mates with Mark Nichol, who's the guy who ran Lithium Records, and they had the Needles. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but that sort of 90s indie, sort of 90s bands. and we got played quite a bit. We did like BBC Radio Scotland sessions and stuff. We're really lucky, and that was fun times. That was my true Scottish band, I suppose. Yeah.
And like, so going back a bit before even the gents, then what was your early ambitions? Obviously, you went to uni. So what were you studying at uni, and what was your ambitions? What did you want to do? Did you want a job, or were you focused on the music?
I never knew what I wanted to do. I always wanted, apart from, I love playing music. It's probably maybe that's what most musicians will tell you. Like, that was the dream, I suppose. That and arts, because I love painting, and I was painting before I could play the guitar, and like I've always painted as well. And that's how those were my two sort of ambitions, I suppose. And when I went to uni at Edinburgh, well, before that I was in bands, but when I went to uni in Edinburgh, I went to Napier University. I just did a communications. I say just, that's putting it down, but I did a communications course because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But actually, I suppose I knew Edinburgh had a good music scene, so that was part of the reason for the choice. And at that time, we were going to watch bands like Idlewild when they were really just starting. I mean, I remember seeing Idlewild is it called the Wee Red Bar in Edinburgh? I don't know if it still exists, but and that was before their first album, so they just had an EP out, and that was for me, that was like the first time I felt like connected. That's the first time I went, this is what I want to do, this is perfect, this is what I was looking for. Because before, I'd been to see loads of bands, like my favourite band, all different bands. I mean, I'd been to see Oasis and stuff, but I like that, but like seeing Idlewild, like a group of guys my age on a sort of quite at that time quite small stage, and it all kicking off, like the crowd going nuts and people just chucking beer, and Roddy Rumbo, the singer, like was going absolutely crazy, and like at the end of the first song, his shoes had come off. Like one was at the far end of the bar and stuff. And then at one point he was standing in the bar and stuff. And I was going, this is what life is about. This is what I want to do. I want to do something like this. So that was a real kind of eye opener. And that was I felt lucky. I fell into that by chance. I guess I could have seen that anywhere. I could have been in Leeds or Sheffield or Glasgow, certainly Glasgow for sure. But anywhere there's bands like that, isn't there? But that was like, so once, and then it turned out, I went to see them, and then it turned out that the drummer from the Gents was like best mates with the drummer from Idlewild. I was just like, at that point again, I was kind of going, this is handy, this is all right, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's fun because my next question was going to be, what were your influences then about then? So would you consider Idlewild as an influence? Because I've listened to you obviously on other podcasts, and I think you touched on Idlewild then. And after listening to some of your stuff as well, I can hear the Idlewild sound. I don't know if that's just because you've been talking about it, and then I've kind of put the two of them together, but I could kind of hear that sort of sound coming.
Definitely like a big influence. It was nice down here yesterday, so I was sat out, and I'd put Idlewild's first album on, and I hadn't, to be totally honest, Martin, like I hadn't listened to it for maybe like 10 years or something. Just because I know it really well. But it's nice, isn't it? See when you put an album on that you knew, and then you don't listen to it, and then you come back to it.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And it brought back loads of memories and stuff. But yeah, Idlewild were a big influence. But the funny thing is, like, the funny thing was when we came to London, and Ben and I formed the Mardous, and we were recording our single for McGee's label. He sort of was putting a few names in the hat for producers for that, and potential producers for the album, which in the end he wasn't able to do for us, but we ended up doing it ourselves. But that's a different story. Anyway, the names that he put in the hat, it was like some amazing names, like Paul Epworth, who's massive.
Yeah, I mean, he was producing everything back then, wasn't he? Block Party,
yeah, he was. Yeah, and Paul Epworth and Paul Tippler. Now, in my shame, I didn't know who Tippler was at that point. And Paul was chosen to do the single. So we went out to the studio, and I'm fast forwarding now to sort of 2004, but this is the link all the way back. We went down to the studio in East London and met Tippler, And I thought, yeah, he's cool. He's a nice guy and stuff. And I said, so what else have you done? And he said a few bands and stuff. He'd worked with like, I think like loads of bands, loads of like amazing bands and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. And he went, oh, I said, any Scottish bands? And he went, oh yeah, I did Idlewild's first album. And I was just like, you are joking. Are you for real? And so straight away after that, it was like somebody had switched the light on, you know. So he was telling me, as we were recording the single, we were chatting to Tippler about that, and he was saying, oh yeah, so we did most of the album, and he was telling us the whole story, and I just thought, life is a mad thing. Like, how's this happened? How have we come from Edinburgh down to London? How have we got signed? How are we now working with somebody that we probably stood in a bar next to in Edinburgh all those years ago, you know? So it's funny how life works. But that's...
It's funny that because Paul's name came up, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 episodes ago. We had a band, a female band, Bug-Eye for Croydon, I think they're from, and they're produced by Paul Tippler.
I'll need to check them out. Yeah, I know the last time I saw Tippler was a wee while ago, but went out and just caught up, had a few beers, and he said he was working with, what's the name of the band? Lines? I can't remember what they're called. But that was an all-female band as well. I wonder if that's... But he's worked with a host. Like, he cut his teeth working with, like, the Wonder stuff, I think. And he's a great guy, so...
So, obviously, we touched on the Gents and your time there. And so how did moving back to London come about?
Well, it was moving down to London for the first time from Edinburgh. So I'd lived in the north of England for a wee while.
Right.
And then, so yeah, London was, I felt the Gents had sort of run their course, I suppose. And I really wanted a change of scene and like many a stupid Scotsman before me, I came to London, but I didn't have any. I didn't even know if I wanted to do music, if I'm honest. So like I sort of go to sort of open mic nights and stuff, and sort of read the ads in the NME at the time, people looking for musicians and stuff. And Ben hadn't come down at that time; he was still in Edinburgh, and he was just sort of we'd be every couple of weeks we'd catch up on the phone in those days, and sort of he'd say, "What's London like?" And I'd say, "Yeah, it's all right. You know, I've been writing songs and recording some demos and stuff." And then I got a gig, not as well. I suppose it was the early Mardous. With a girl called Tanya. We were doing kind of folky stuff, and we had a drummer and stuff, and I sent Ben the demos, and he was like, oh yeah, I was thinking I might come down to London. We've got two different stories about this, because we talked about it recently when we were catching up, and he says I persuaded him to come down, and I remember it being, he said, oh, I want to come to London anyway. So he decided to come down, and we sort of over the months sort of, I suppose, formed the Mardous, but it wasn't the Gents. I wanted it to be different. There's nothing wrong with the Gents. I enjoyed that and stuff, but I wanted it to be. I could see the scene, and the scene at that time in London was probably the scene. Maybe that, I don't know, Martin. I'm asking you, but maybe that you're more familiar with. So that was. I mean, London and non-London bands, but I certainly playing regularly bands like the Paddingtons. I mean, the Libertines playing in pubs every week, you know. And I was watching that going, there's something going on here that's really interesting. And it was all riding on the back of the Strokes, really, I think. I know the Libertines were like really massively influenced by the Strokes from New York. And they sort of did their sort of British version, didn't they, I suppose? But that was honestly, like Edinburgh and Idlewild was amazing. But London at that time with the Libertines was just insane, like something totally different.
Well, this is the thing as well, with Idlewild. Idlewild were quite rocky at that point, but the music ran about them. Obviously, Travis, Star Sailor, all the kind of the music, it went a bit stale. Everything was quite kind of, it slowed down a bit, and it wasn't, as you say, until the Strokes came and gave music a kick up the arse, and then the Libertines kind of saw that and kind of copied it, and that was kind of, for that awoke everything in me. And obviously hundreds of other kids the same age around about that time. I mean, I met my missus, I met my wife in 2006, and she's from just the other end of London. She's from Gatwick, And I met her. She was up here for a night out in Hamilton. And I met her, and we had like a long distance relationship for a year. But I loved just going down to London. I was going down to London for the week and just spending it walking about London trying to find Pete Doherty. So I can imagine there'd be hundreds of other folk like me just trying to do that, and like yourself, kind of going down to London in the search of something different, maybe.
Definitely. I was going to say, like,
sorry.
it's funny you were talking about Idlewild and the Strokes and the Libertines, because I think the last gig I went to in Edinburgh was the Strokes gig at the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh before I came to London. I knew I was going to London by that point. I had it in my head, and I went to the Strokes gig. And at the Strokes gig, we were watching the Strokes, and I remember Roddy and Rod from Idlewild came in behind us, and by that point, we knew them. Like we supported them on tour. Actually, we played with them in Orkney and stuff. And I was like, "All right, guys, what are you doing?" And they just almost didn't talk to us. Like, it's the Strokes, and we've got backstage passes. We're going. And at that point, I just realised, like, the Strokes had sort of changed everything. It was a massive wake-up call, wasn't it? And you mentioned bands like Star Sailor and stuff. And it's no disrespect to any of those bands or to Idlewild or anybody at all. It's not a disrespectful thing. But music had definitely changed.
Yeah.
And I think Idlewild were kind of started as this really raw punk art school band that I loved, and had sort of morphed into kind of a REM sort of band. And I still loved them, but I couldn't see really, for me, how I fitted into that particularly. Not that I'm Mr. Punk or anything, but you know what I mean? It wasn't where I particularly wanted to go at that time anyway with music.
It's funny that as well. I mean, I'm big into probably the first three, maybe the fourth Idlewild album as well. I've just got tickets for them at the Barrowlands in December. But
all right, yeah.
But I'm hoping that they play the majority of the early stuff, because like the later albums, I've not got a clue.
When we were in the Gents, Martin, like, we were hanging around a lot with Bob, who was the original bass player who played on and I was listening, as I say, I was listening to them yesterday, Idlewild, and I was looking at the songwriting credits for album 3. And Rob Fairfield, his name is, isn't it? So, but his credit on a lot of those songs. So he had obviously been in the writing process for sort of. And so I'm with you, really. Like, I realised that's maybe because I know the sort of music he's into. He went on to be in a band called Degrassi, and it now still hangs about with Christian, who was in the Gents in Edinburgh and stuff. That sounds a bit niche, but yeah, that he was that much in it, sort of quite maybe a bit more of a. I know Roddy was a bit of a punk, but Bob had that kind of harder edge. He was in quite heavy on music, and you can feel that in the first few albums, up to sort of 3 or 4. It's funny you said about meeting your missus like at that time, because that's pretty much when I met my partner, and we met in London in 2004. But what we've discovered since, we've got a couple of kids now and live in London, but what we've discovered since is that I think the first time I saw the Libertines in London, it was at Filthy McNasty's, and I think it was when Peter had just got out of jail for one of the times, and so Peter and Carla got together and they were doing a little acoustic thing, and we went along, and somebody sent my partner a photo, and in the photo is her stood next to me, and this is like 3 months before we met.
That's mental, isn't it?
And that's one of those little life things, again, like the Paul Tippler thing, that makes you think, that's okay, I'm on the right path still. Do you know what I mean? It's like a wee sign that came along. That was when I first saw that, I was like, Jax went, can you see who's in the photo? And I went, oh yeah, look at the state of me, that's me, innit? Oh yeah, that's you, that's me and you at the, and she went, at the what? And I went, what's the date on that? And she was like, that's before we knew each other. I was like, no way, that's mad.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Give it another 5 years and you'll be releasing the Mardous film. That's brilliant, man.
Right, okay, right. Can you do the script?
Yeah, I'll get a go, man. I'll get a bash. That's the thing with us Scottish folk, in it. We'll try our hand at anything.
Oh, aye, too right.
So like, once you were down there, then obviously we touched on the scene, obviously the Strokes and the Libertines, and then there's everything that comes with the Libertines, because, as you say, like the Paddingtons are up in Hull, but they were down in London all the time. So what was the scene like, and how accepting was everybody at the start?
It was like nothing had ever been involved with. So everyone was very, very accepting, like almost to the point of like it's I suppose it's quite a Scottish thing. I remember going to my Scottish relatives as a little kid, and like if you were offered something like a bit of cake or a chocolate biscuit, I remember man Annie would be like, "Right, son, you having a chocolate biscuit?" And I'd be like, "No." My mum would be looking at me and I'd be going, "No, no, thanks." And she'd go, "What the hell's wrong with you? Eat it." Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. Like if you turn something down, it's more offensive than, and it's pretty much like that. It's like we'd sort of turn up watching bands and they'd be like, "Right, you guys, you're going to get up and play." Like at the end, we're all just going to get on the stage and play. And I'd be like, initially a bit scared of it, you know. They'd be like, "No, I think we're all right." And I'd be like, "What?" And be like, "This is what happens." So it quickly became, but it was absolutely amazing. We quite early on got a residency in a place called the Pleasure Unit in Bethnal Green. Pete Doherty lived upstairs. My mate, who lived also upstairs in a different room, was managing the Mardous. And so every Monday night, I was going, Monday night, who goes out on a Monday night? Turns out everybody who likes music goes out on a Monday night, because that's the deal. So we would go on every Monday, we'd turn up, play a few songs. Peter might come down, do some songs, might be Baby Shambles. Paddingtons were in town. It'd be the Paddingtons, the Unstrung, Dustin's Bar Mitzvah. It would just be like Razorlight, like Johnny Borrow might be there. It was just insane. But nobody was precious about it. It wasn't like I'm headlining. No, I'm headlining. It was just have a laugh and have a party, you know, like genuinely. And it might end up that more of the crowd ended up on the stage at the end of the night than the bands, because that's just what happened. And I'd never experienced that really. There was definitely less of a them and us vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like it was bands and the audience where I'd been before. Bands put on shows, the audience come to watch. This was very, very different. I think though, Martin, that was partly to do with the time. I think the internet was just beginning to kick off. Certainly people had textable mobile phones. Like you've spoken to Dominic Masters. I mean, he lived on his phone.
Yeah.
I remember like his phone I'd be chatting to him and his phone would just be pinging every sort of 10 seconds. And the first time I met him and we were chatting, I was going, "What's going on with your phone?" What? And he was like, "What?" I was like, "What's going on with your phone?" "Oh, it's just about tomorrow night's gig." It was just people going, "Can I come to the gig, put my name down?" And he'd recognised that communication. I've got a degree in it. He saw it way before me.
Yeah, I mean, because he was so in tune with the fan base, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And still is. I mean, he's even now, looking at him on Facebook, he's constantly... I seen him the day talking to somebody about T-shirts.
Yeah.
Why he's not getting any T-shirts for the third, fourth and fifth album.
He's amazing. Like he's and that's what he was like on the phone. Like he'd be just chatting to people going, yeah, and he'd know every single person's name. He'd know really well. He'd know who they might be coming to the gig with. And that's what it was. So it was genuinely like a massive community. And of course, Dominic at that time and Peter were good buddies and doing a lot of stuff together, songwriting and stuff and other things. But that was the community, you know. And I think, and then it sort of within, well, I mean, even probably when we joined it, it just kind of, there was the .org sort of.
Yeah, the forums and all that.
Forum, yeah.
Again, they were so integral to kind of the communication with the fans. And you still, again, you see that on Facebook. There's a Libertines.org community on Facebook, and it's all the same people.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
We're pretty years down the line, but everybody still talks.
I went to see the others like in London a few weeks ago, and I was like, this is before we did our gig, so like it was my first kind of proper dipping my toes back into it, I suppose, after sort of significant amount of years. But I went to see the others, and then I really enjoyed it. It was at the 100 Club, so it was an amazing venue, you know. It was the night after the Sex Pistols had played, you know, the new Sex Pistols or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, after the gig, so I was with my partner, and she was like, "Oh, you're going to go and speak to Dominic?" I said, "Yeah, I'll go and say hi." But I was, even in my head, I'm going, I've not spoken to him for like 20 years, like, so I sort of went up and I went, hey, hi Dom, how's it going? And he went, oh my God. And he gave me like a massive hug. And there was loads of people around him waiting to speak to him and stuff. I felt really embarrassed. And he was like, do you guys know who this is? And I was like, I could feel myself going red, but he remembers absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
Even then he was like, oh, did you see our drummer? He was the drummer that was going to play for you guys before you got, and I was going, I don't even remember that. Like, that's a massive deal. But
so it's funny you say that as well, because like, what was it? One of the stories for 22 Grand Pod as well was it Block Party, and was it the others before they had Dominant Masters? They were auditioning for a singer, and they nearly ended up with Kelly for the Block Party.
I didn't know that.
Which kind of would have been totally different or whatever. Obviously, Kelly was a bit younger at that time as well, but for whatever reason, it never happened. And then a couple of years later, Kelly turns up with Block Party. I mean, two cracking bands, but
that's mad.
Sliding doors moments in it.
Totally is. That's insane. I don't really know Block Party. I literally saw Kelly. I was walking for the bus one day, and this was 2004 or something. And I sort of looked up and he was walking down in front of me, and I thought, oh, there's Kelly. And then I thought, he doesn't know who I am, actually. I've never met him. That would have been, the others would have been, that would have been an interesting band. I'm quite interested in that.
Yeah.
Dominic is, like, it's his kind of, like, at that others gig a few weeks ago, and certainly back in the day, I mean, they had a really loyal following, but it was, I'm going to say, based around, but it's probably the success. Certainly, a massive chunk of it is him, Dominic, knowing everybody. Yeah, like knowing who everybody is. He knows everyone in the crowd by name. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm in awe of that. Really, it's amazing.
So, I mean, obviously, at this time you were between 2004 and 2006, gigging relentlessly. He talked off mic, I think, about supporting Happy Mondays in the farm at Braehead, Arctic Monkeys, Baby Shambles, Paddingtons, supporting all these bands or playing with all these bands. What were some of the highlights of these gigs for you?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think apart from the obvious things like getting experience of that kind of world, getting to know some of these, like, like we're going to be. When might this go out, Martin? I don't want to say stuff that I'm not allowed to say.
A couple of weeks' time. I get one to come out next Monday, and then yours will be the following. So probably the bank holiday Monday.
No, that's okay. So we're band like the Paddingtons. Well, look, we played with them a few weeks ago up in Hull, and again, like, I hadn't seen them for a significant amount of time. Obviously, had a bit of chat. I met Tom in London, like, in between, and I just realised he was exactly the same. Just a decent guy, and hadn't changed. And was the Tom that I'd sort of got to know and stuff. That was kind of reassuring. But going up to play with them, they invited us to play with them in Hull to go to support them and stuff. And going up to Hull is already quite like their home ground. I knew it was a sold out gig and stuff. Just arriving and go, like, that was way more daunting than going into the venue probably and doing the gig. Like, just arriving, sort of thinking, I wonder what are they going to be like? What are they going to think I'm like and stuff? It's exactly the same, man. Like, it's exactly the same. And like, forging those kind of bonds with bands like the Paddingtons and stuff was just brilliant, because you sort of make mates for life. And you've got so much in common, and so much sort of shared history. I said this from the stage at the Paddington. I was like, we've got so much shared history. I mean, they were on the same label. They were going through the same stuff. They went through the exact same stuff that we did at the end. I mean, the Paddingtons were incredibly successful. More successful than we were, but still going, and almost worse for them, but going through the same stuff that we went through, So able to see the world, but gigging. I mean, the Stone Roses gig was at Braehead Arena, so that was so that was just in itself sort of mind-boggling weirdness, because it was just like playing a massive ice hockey like stadium. So even the sound check, you're sort of going, what is going on? This is like, it's like, I remember just playing my bass just to the sound check, and it was just like the loudest thing, the deepest, loudest thing I could ever heard. I was just sort of going, this is absolutely insane. And then like being in bloody U2 or something, like you look up and your face is on the giant screens and stuff, and you're just going, this is just stupid. So that was, but that's, I mean, that's a massive one-off. That was great. We did Glastonbury and stuff, which was, but that was with the Paddingtons and all the Poptones bands, and hanging out with bands that we knew as well. So we, you know, so a lot. I'm going to say, like, the thing that we got out of that journey from 2004 to 2006, it was so many things, but meeting, I suppose, like-minded people, decent people who are just trying to do their thing and having an opportunity to do it and stuff, and the 99% just decent people, you know. Like, I mean, if Paddingtons go up and play with them now, and they're like, yeah, just use our drum kit, use our kit, you know, like they're so just normal and helpful and stuff, and that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't really know where to start with that question. Hopefully I've bluffed my way through that one maybe a bit.
No, I know it is hard. That we'll touch on it more. I'd imagine as we go on, more names will come up anyway. But obviously, signing to Poptones, then I believe it was Carol Barat had a hand in getting McGee to come and see you. So I'm sure the listeners would like to hear that story.
Well, we played a lot with Peter in Baby Shambles form, or sometimes you get up and do his solo thing with the Libertines. Now, I was a big fan of the Libertines, and so we'd sort of go to gigs with them, and because at that point we were sort of, I suppose we were sort of in, before we were signed, we were sort of in the sort of whatever in is. So we're getting to hang out with them quite a bit and stuff, and maybe go on and play before they played, you know, like little pub gigs or whatever. Really, like we played at the Rhythm Factory in the East End of London a lot, and then Peter had sort of going after us or whatever, or Wolfman, but I didn't know Carl that well, not like massively well. But one night he just sort of said, like, I'm opening a club in Mayfair, which is the other end of town, and I mean, everybody knows Mayfair. It's a bit posh and stuff. I was a bit like, did he say Mayfair? I was a bit like, Mayfair? What? He said it's called Infinity. And I can't remember if it was I don't know what night of the week it was. It wouldn't have been a Monday, because I'd remember that, because it would have been 2 Mondays. I think it might have been a Thursday night or something. Anyway, whatever night it was, he said, I'm opening a club. I need a band who will play every week. We're going to have some big names come down. We'll have some bands that I like coming down to play. And every week you guys just go on and open. And or maybe go on second, or maybe go on after the headliner if they've got to get away or whatever. Just, are you up for it? And of course we were like, yeah, of course, yeah. So we sort of go down for a few weeks. We played Infinity, and Carl would be there sometimes, and there'd be other people there as well, you know, like recognisable people that you know, like Tim Burgess would sort of hang about and stuff. So we'd sort of play there, and it was fine, and it was good fun and stuff. And but it was a bit shambolic, as the Libertines kind of are, isn't it? It's like, it's not, it's never going to be polished, is it? But that's kind of why you invest in them, you know. Anyway, one night I genuinely didn't really know what was going on. We were playing, and I noticed Carl had sort of come down to watch the gig or whatever, and put on the next gig, the next act or whatever, announced some stuff, and I sort of gave him a nod and stuff, but he sort of came onto the stage, and we'll just finish it. He goes, how many songs you got left? I was like, I don't know. I was kind of going, everyone's watching, and I'm sort of having this conversation, and I went, I don't know, like, I think we're almost done. I was thinking he wants us off. Somebody's arrived. He went, oh, just keep playing. I went, no, I think we're done. We got one more song. He said, no, just play it, just keep playing. I went, no, we're done. You can get whoever. He goes, no, play the set again. And I went, do what? Play the set again? What do you mean? Do the whole thing again? Yeah. I went, why? He goes, I haven't got time. Just play it again. But he says, do your hits, do the singles. I'm going, do the singles. Genuinely, I was going, I hadn't honestly thought about singles and stuff. I went, right. So I just went, right, we'll just go from the top, whatever. And then I sort of saw a crowd of people, not many, like a handful, right, 4 or 5 people, like stood at the bar at the back and stuff, chatting, and Carl was there and stuff. And I was kind of, I was playing and I was going, this is great. Yes, because we loved playing there. but also it was a bit of a glorified rehearsal because we play every week. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was kind of loving it. I was going, this is great, and he sort of gave me a nod. He was like, in other words, right, you can get off now. And I was like, all right. So in my head, I'm just going, right, somebody's been late. I didn't know who was coming on after us. They haven't arrived. He's wanted to fill the time. We've done the thing. We bugger off. So we go off the stage and he says, right, bar. And I was like, yeah, all right, fine. He said, now, get to the bar. And we just went down and McGee was there. And again, in my head, it's not about us. So I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I'm thinking, idiot in slow motion. I'm thinking, I wonder if McGee's seen the set. That's quite interesting. And he goes, right. And then McGee just sat down, sat at a little table. And then he says, right, boys, get a drink and come over. So we just got a drink, went over. And he's like, so yeah, Carl just said to come down. Yeah. I'm going to sign you if you're up to it. And I was just like, because I hadn't expected it at all, like stupidly, no, it was just out of the blue. And Carl, by this point, had vanished. He was off doing something. I was like, I sort of looked around for him and I thought, where's he gone? And even to this day, if I say to him, like, that was, what the hell? He's just not in. He's just like, I just thought you guys deserved a shot, So that was.
It's funny that as well, obviously, like the Paul Tickler stuff and the photo with your missus, and obviously McGee, obviously with you coming for East Coast Bride, the same as him.
Yeah, that was mad, right? And over the months after that, like we'd hang out with Alan a lot actually. Like he like DJ'd at Glastonbury. We'd go through to Paris. Now McGee's big everywhere, and everyone knows who he is. But we'd sort of go through to Paris, but he'd come with us, so we'd like get the Eurostar with him, and we'd chat and stuff. The weird thing, like the East Coast Bride, like never came up. It never came up, and I don't know why I didn't mention it, and I don't know why he didn't mention it. We just spent quite a lot of time chatting about music, and maybe I don't know. Maybe
I don't know if he was as kind of passionate about like once he went down to England. I don't think he ever really bothered coming back. I think that was just a bit of his life. Obviously, I think he had a kind of troubled relationship with his father, according to the film anyway. So maybe there's a lot of that where he kind of just blanks that part of his life.
I think that's probably right, man. I haven't actually seen the film, but I think the only time that we ever had a sort of Glasgow, West Coast, or even Scottish connection was when we went to Braehead to do the gig, and we got out of the airport. Oh no, I think we're coming back. We'll come back to London. We've done the gig and stuff. And we're coming back to London. Yeah, because we're driving into the station to get the train back from the hotel or something. Anyway, we're driving past, and the bit of the M8 that stops. Mm-hmm. It's got the ramp. I don't know if it's still there. Actually, you haven't seen it, but it's the ramp. They sort of, and then it just stops.
Yeah,
we're having this conversation. Like this, it's me and Ben and McGee in the taxi. I think, and Lewis. I think at the time, we're just chatting, and he goes, "Well, hey, boys." Well, I was going. This is a great conversation. We're a bit hungover and stuff. We're having a bit of a laugh about the night before, and he goes, "Hey, boys, stop! Look out the window now. Look out the window." And I thought, "Is he seen what's going on? What's it?" And we all looked out the window. He goes, and it was the bit that stops, and he goes, "Love that." And then he just carried on. Even that, I was thinking, I've seen that before. Like, I don't know, but it was almost like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, but that was the only time that it was any kind of Scottish enthusiasm. Yeah, it had to be about that.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I manage a band as well, and I've been trying desperately to get the music to him, in the hope that he'll take a chance, but I'm not sure how keen he is to take on another Scottish band anyway. I think he's got his hands full with The View and stuff like that. So I don't.
What's the name of the band, Martin? Sorry, I don't know. What's the name of the band?
They've got the High Flats, and they're from Castle Milk, so kind of say the same area again. Yeah. So, couple of singles out on Spotify.
I've got a funny feeling I might have listened to the High Flats. I've got a mate, Chris, who's his family are all Scottish, and he's bought a wee place in Greenock. He's a Londoner. He's a proper Cockney, but he's into everything Scottish music wise. I think he might have. I think he said to me, "Listen to them." I might have listened to. I'm certainly going to listen to them now. Anyway, I think McGee. I think the thing with McGee is he's just maybe. I've seen him doing some stuff on sort of socials now, and he sort of is almost sort of self-deprecating a wee bit, like I'm a 60, I don't know what age he is, I'm a 60 whatever year old guy, wee guy from Scotland still doing it or whatever. And I kind of think it's quite weird, because I don't know many, what's the word for it, impresarios or whatever you call them. Like he's a big name in the music business, old school.
And this is the fact that every kind of indie band going wants to work with him.
Yeah.
He would never be out of work, you know what I mean? He wouldn't be out of offers.
That's the thing. But I think maybe the bands that he sort of works with, like now, seem to be, I know you've interviewed, I saw John Power that you've interviewed. I didn't realise you'd interviewed him. I love the Lads. I'll be listening to that. I think he manages John and Cast.
Yeah. I think maybe he kind of looks at these guys and kind of like people that maybe deserve a second chance or whatever.
I think that's it. Because does he not manage? Is it the Blow Monkeys?
I think so. Yeah, that rings a bell too.
Which again, nothing against them. I was kind of going, it's an unusual choice. And is it Huey from Fun Loving Criminals and stuff like that? Maybe you're right. That's what he does. Maybe that's it.
He's a bit of a loony. I heard him on a podcast not that long ago.
Is he?
I wouldn't mess with him. Huey so obviously signing to Poptones, and you released Revolution Over the Phone 2005. That was the only release on Poptones. That's correct, isn't it? Now, there was an album of stuff which is out there on SoundCloud, isn't it? I've been listening to some of it in SoundCloud, and it's some of the stuff that you started releasing now. So, like you kind of touched on it earlier about kind of yourselves and the Paddingtons and how kind of victims they kind of probably the changing in the music scene and maybe the earth collapsing and money kind of running out of the music scene back then. So how hard was that to take?
It was really hard, and the thing about it was, like, McGee would be quite open about it as well. Like he was never anything but open. So like I've still got, because if you've watched a few other bits and bobs, I've been sort of rediscovering the diaries that I kept from those times, and I've got like printouts of like emails that McGee sent me and stuff, which I I don't think it's fair to share stuff like that with specific details, because it's that's not right. But the gist of it is really interesting. Looking back on stuff like that, he's very open about the fact that like Universal, who basically, I think Poptones was a sort of arm, a sort of a minor part of a subsidiary of Universal. And Universal just decided that model wasn't going to work for them for the future, so they just pulled a lot of money from these minor, for want of a better word, labels. But McGee was really open about it and stuff, and would sort of say to us, oh, it's changing, boys. Have you got, what's your plan B, sort of thing? I'm kind of going, did we need a plan B? Oh, right, yeah, I'll get on that. Yeah. Because
I mean, when you're in that world at that time, and amongst all those bands, and bands are bringing out, there was a different album out every week. Like record deals were 10 a penny back then. So when you're in amongst that, you don't think you need a plan B, do you? You think you are the next ones.
No, that's right, and also the stuff that doesn't really get talked about. So like we'd be meeting with like stuff that I never knew happened. So we'd be meeting with and courted by other people as well. So they'd be meeting with record company lawyers, or not record company lawyers, music lawyers, independent music lawyers. I remember going to this guy's offices in Parsons Green in London, which is quite a nice part of town, and going up and not really knowing, the whole band went, and the manager, not really knowing why we were going. The manager was like, he's a music lawyer. And I was kind of going, in my head, I'm going, all right, so have we got to sign something for the single? I don't understand. So I got there and I said, so what have you got to do with McGee? He said, I don't work for Alan. I was like, all right. I'm thinking, what are we doing here? I don't understand why we're here. But a lot of these people just have you so that you're reachable if something happens, if you're the next Arctic Monkeys or you're the next you've met them, and you kind of go, oh, that guy Paul seemed all right. I'll give him a call. So there's a lot of whining and dining. The guy got the champagne out and stuff. I'm going, does he think we're someone else? Have we got something going on that I don't know about here? What's going on? But it's quite right. And also, like, some managers and some other record companies would phone my mobile. Didn't know they had my number. Would phone my mobile and go, what are you doing on Tuesday or whatever? And I'd be like, well, we're in London on Tuesday. I'm not doing gigs, so I'll be available. What's going on? And they'd be like, do you want to come and have a drink? Or do you want to come for lunch and stuff? And I'd be like, yeah, can do. And it's all about kind of, and then you turn up and they'd be like, or even on tech, I had people saying to me, don't tell Alan. And you'd be kind of going, all right, this is what's going on here. But of course you go, because it's, and I'm glad I did, because I mean, even Alan, that's just how it works. I suppose that's kind of how business works, isn't it? I'm not a businessman, that's the difference. But that was when Alan went, so what's the plan B? He would have been going, these guys must know X, Y, and Z, so they'll have someone else they can go and do anyway. And we had a few offers, but not the ones we wanted. So we were a bit gutted at the time. But that was the same as the Paddingtons and the Unstrung and all that, all the Poptones crowd. And even, I mean, it did affect the bigger bands. So like the Libertines, they weren't on Poptones, they weren't on Creation, but they were managed by McGee. So I suppose they would be okay, but his whole business model would change overnight. Like he wasn't anymore. His record company pretty much folded and he became a management company, but he would probably, the Libertines would be fine, wouldn't they? Although at that time, I mean, there's quite a lot going on with the Libertines. I'm not sure he was relishing the fact that he was managing them, but
that's it. I mean, you touched on that, like when you touched on when McGee the night that he signed you. Obviously, you mentioned Tim Burgess, so that would be around about the time. I think Carol was doing like they build it as a wee super group. I think with Tim Burgess. I'm trying to think who else. It was called the Chavs.
Andy Burrows as well.
That's right. Aye.
Andy's a friend of mine actually, because when I came back, I went after the Mardous. I don't want to mix up sort of timeline too much. So after the Mardous, I went and lived in Spain for about 4 years and stuff. That's where I met Amy Jo. But when I came back, I went and did a few solo things, and I went on tour supporting Andy Burrows doing his thing. So I know Andy.
Was that when he done the solo stuff? Was it Spiral or something it was called?
He did. Andy was doing. Well, at the time that I was on tour with him, he'd done an album called Reasons to Stay Alive with Matt Haig, the author Matt Haig, who's quite a well-known author. And I'm on that album as well. Andy wanted me to do some speaking parts on the album, bits and bobs. So I went on tour with Andy. But yeah, Andy and I have chatted about the Chavs because again, that's going back to that thing. So I was on tour with Andy and I spent a week with Andy. I mean, I was all mates anyway. Our daughters are we're best friends. That's how we got to know each other. So we mostly chat about the kids and when are you having a barbecue and stuff. But that gives us a chance to talk about music. So I was sort of saying, he would say, I said, who do you know that I know? Who do we have shared sort of acquaintances with and stuff? And Carl's name came up. And Tim Burgess, I don't know Tim that well, but I certainly do Carl. And he said, the Chavs. I was going, do you know the drummer and the Chavs? That's what I know. So in my diary again, there's a night we played Deaf Disco, and the Mardous came off, and the Chavs went on, and Ben stayed on because Carl must have said to Ben, our guitarist, he was like, maybe one of his. He says he can't make it. Can you play? What do you know by the Jam? And Ben's brilliant, like he knows everything. He was like, what do you want to play or something? He said, can we start with That's Entertainment or something? So Ben was playing that. I was thinking, that's mad. So I would have been watching Ben on stage with Carl, amazing. Tim, great. Andy Burrows, who's now like one of my best mates on drums, didn't speak to him again after that for 10 years, 15 years, something like that.
Mental.
Where you go again, like stuff like that's just mental, isn't
it? Who else was it? Was Dids? Was Dids Hammond? Was he in the Chavs? Because that would be then Dirty Pretty Things.
I'd have to ask Andy, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know it was the three of them were doing that I don't want to do them discredit, but for a wee while there, it was it was an NME and stuff, wasn't it? Like the Chavs, great name for a band as well, the Chavs.
Yeah, I mean, like talking about the Paddingtons, like when I had Lloyd on the podcast, obviously he kind of touched on the end because he said about how they were good pals with the View, and obviously I think the View were maybe like the last kind of band to get a big record deal before it all went to shit. And I think Paddington's second album and The View's second album were coming out at the same time. And Lloyd said, basically, once he heard their album, he says he knew that was the writing in the wall for them, because The View had basically brought out the album that they wanted to do.
Is that right?
Aye. Something along the lines. I mean, that's a good couple of years ago. I had the chat with Lloyd, but
that's mad, isn't it? And I guess like that was. I'm not comparing this to that at all. That's a totally different thing. I'm not putting myself up on that pedestal. So I'm not. So don't get me wrong here. But like, I suppose the link I can sort of make with that is, I remember like later on, maybe like late 2005, early 2006. I don't know where it would have been, but touring, and I remember playing. Like just touring, so playing different city, different town every night, or whatever. But turning up at Wigan, and Arctic Monkeys had played the night before, and going in to do the sound check. And like normally with the sound guys, they're all, they're a bit of a party the night before, but they're still up for it and stuff. Everybody just seemed like really, like they'd seen the best gig ever, and now they had to put another gig on.
Yeah,
like a bit pointless. And no disrespect to them at all, but it was a bit like that. We were like, oh, right. And we looked at the venue, a great venue in Wigan and stuff. I walked in, I was like, God, it's like the Palladium or something. This is amazing. Everyone's just like that. All right, so you guys the Mardous, yeah? I was like, yeah. So what's been happening recently? What happened last night? That was amazing. And I just felt like, oh, no.
But that's it. And then
you
think then Arctic Monkeys maybe had they were the big dogs for 2 or 3 albums, but then you look at the grief they get now for the music they produce, which I think is I love what they do, and the way kind of he's changed his voice and the way he sings and all that, but you need to be the same.
Yeah.
The fans don't want you to change for that initial how you were and how they like you. They don't really.
That's the thing.
People want to change
on an infinitely smaller level. I still see that. Even the gig at Hull that we're doing with Paddingtons, I had people sort of texting going, "Are you doing new stuff, or is it all going to be the old stuff?" And they want to hear the old stuff. That's what they want. And that was for us. I'm like, it's mostly the old stuff. Oh, great! Yeah, I'll be into that. But yeah, but that's it. But but I was annoyed because I was jealous, really, I suppose, if I'm honest, because they played a blinder. Like, we played a gig with them and they were telling us that we should headline because we had a record deal and they didn't have a record deal. And that was quite hard to argue, but I knew that it was their fan. It was in Nottingham. I knew that the people were mostly there to see them, It was clear by that point they were about to sign to somebody massive and stuff. And I was annoyed, partly because it wasn't us, if I'm honest. Of course, right? We worked so hard. They were working just as hard, probably harder than we were, so they deserve it. I was annoyed because they'd written some good songs, and people were relating to that, and they were a bit different to us. Like, the songs were quite bass level, quite like, who's the band? Is it what do you call them now? Is it the Lathams?
Yeah.
It's that kind of genre, but a bit like pulp, right? So it's that kind of, and I love pulp, and I love those kind of bands, but it's not what we were doing. I was annoyed that was making it big, because I was jealous, let's face it. But I was pleased for them, but also, like, I was also a bit annoyed because, like, at that time, the bands I'd invested, I thought it came from the Strokes initially. That was my, if I went back. But the thing that woke us up, I'd be going, the thing that everybody, it's the Strokes. For me, it's the Strokes. And then I met bands like the Cribs, and I was going, they get it. That's the genre. That's what's going to make it massive. Paddingtons, they get it. That's what. And then I saw Arctic Monkeys becoming massive, and I kind of thought, that's not the same thing. That's not from the same school. They would say it was.
Yeah.
And certainly stuff like Dance Floor and stuff like that, it is pretty close. But
it's funny when you mentioned that, though, as well. That kind of rings a bell with the Libertines. The breakup of the Libertines. I'm trying to think. Must have read it in a book, whether it's Carol Barat's book or one of the biographies about Pete, but basically, I think Carol said to Pete, he says, look, the fans don't want us. They've chose Franz Ferdinand.
Is that right?
Aye, and it was kind of that. So they felt as if they were then in that level competing, and it was they two bands, and obviously with everything that was going on with the Libertines and the shambles that was going on, the Franz Ferdinand became the big band for a while.
That's mad, isn't it? I didn't know that. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's mental. So, I mean, he's released another single, didn't he? Dirty.
Yeah.
I was listening to that today as well, and I'm mega impressed with that.
Thanks.
What was that? Was that released yourself, or was it viral?
Yeah, we stuck that ourselves, but that was kind of when we were still gigging a lot and stuff, and we had a reasonable sized following here and there. We go and play at Paris. It's pretty successful for us. We play there quite a lot and sort of sell out. We played big venues there, so we had to keep stuff going, and we were enjoying it. We put a single out ourselves. But it's not like today where like that's easy. You can do that in almost 10 minutes. You can stick a single out, and just stick the artwork up and chuck an MP3 on it, and away you go. But then it wasn't that hard, but it was quite a new thing. So there was we were kind of going. People saying, "Oh, right, where do I buy the vinyl?" Yeah, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not that kind of thing. And so it's quite new. Also, it's quite hard, isn't it, coming back from having a record company with sort of somebody phoning us every day going, what are you guys up to today? Right, I've got an interview for you. Can you do a wee session at this radio station? And then can you pop down to the offices because we've got some stuff for you to sign, and we've got a few guys who want to meet you, and it might be guys from bands you really like and stuff. Going from that to like getting up going, all right, shit, what are we going to do today? We're going to do that single. We're going to put that out. It's like, who am I talking to? I'm just talking to myself, But yeah, it was fine. It was what it was. But I think by the end of 2006, I think we're pretty burnt out as well, if I'm honest. Like, it's just a mad couple of years, just non-stop.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the scene that you're in, as you say, and you're gigging relentlessly, playing nearly every night or whatever. You're probably then living the life of what artists do now in 10 years. You've done it in 2 years.
It's a non-stop thing. It is. And I really enjoyed it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But like, yeah. And there's people telling you, are you going to slow down? Are you going to slow down a bit? You're going quite fast. You're kind of going, well, not really, because this could be over in 3 weeks. So you're terrified of it's like you're running away from something to keep up with. You're running away from what might be the end. So it's chasing you down the street and you're legging it, seeing it. And then actually the bands that you thought you were on your kind of level of overtaking you, and they're away and they're up there, and you're going, we've got to catch them now, and we're behind that. So that's that sort of thing. It does seem really competitive. It's a mad thing talking about now, because like also we're quite young when we did it. So like you haven't got that experience that that somebody like an old fart like me's got now. Do you know what I mean? Where you kind of go, right, fine, that's happened, but also take a moment, because it's not that big a deal,
So when it was the end, did you all realise it? Or like, how did that come about? Was it a gradual thing, or did you have the conversation and say, look, it's not going anywhere, let's kind of wrap it up, or what? How did that happen?
It's a really good question, Martin. I think increasingly, this sounds like a criticism. It's not at all, because I took it on, but I was doing a lot of stuff. And when I thought that I'd done as much as I could do, I just kind of thought, I'm going to go and do something else. So it's a bit like the Gents. I think maybe I'm not very good at that ending thing. So I think when the Gents finished, I went to London, and I think maybe I left a few people kind of going, so where's he going? And why is he going there? Because this one, and it's a bit like the Mardous, and it's like, where's he going? He's going to Spain. Oh, has he? And I didn't leg it. It wasn't overnight. I actually lived in Scotland for a few months in between. But yeah, the thing is as well, like music was changing so fast. So bands like, I don't know, like Klaxons were coming through.
Yeah, it was going a bit. It was on New Rave and all that, wasn't it?
New Rave, yeah, and even like bands that are coming back again to celebrate 20 years, like the Holloways, Pigeon Detectives. I mean, when we were playing, again, I'd hate this because I sound like a right prima donna or something, but like when we played in Nambucca, the Holloways were serving behind the bar and they weren't in a band. And then they got a band and then they became big. So it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's so
Mr.
much.
Mr.
So
Ego
much
here is
comes
kind of
with-
going, wait a minute, you're in a band now. I was in a band 2 years ago when you weren't even.
And that's the thing as well. It's like with that Nambucca scene, even just like a lot of the people around about that time, they tried so many different things, like Mumford and Sons and
Yeah,
Brothers and all them. They'd done all different styles before they settled on the style that they actually became.
that's right. I forgot about Mumford and Sons, probably deliberately, but yeah, it was splitting, and there was definitely people
Frank
trying to.
Turner and all that.
Yeah, but and
Toast.
even that, when you're in a scene, you don't think it's pretentious. And then when another scene starts, or a split off of that scene starts, you look at it and go, "Oh my god, that's so pretentious! Look at what they're wearing and stuff." Actually, if somebody had held a mirror up to us, I'd be going, "What the hell are we doing?" And probably, actually, it was fair play to everybody. And those bands went off and did some good stuff. But maybe by that time, the record business had, certainly the smaller labels had maybe begun to sort of stabilize a wee bit. They never fully went back to what they were like, but certainly bands like, there was a time in 2006 where labels like Fierce Panda were sort of ringing us up going, okay, why don't you put a Nambucca show on with X, Y, or Z band, and we'll come down and watch it, and we'll talk about the album if it's finished. And we did that, but the money wasn't there. It wasn't like the days previously. There was a lot of, you know.
Again, I mean, Fierce Panda, Simon Williams, that's another one that I've been emailing about the band as well. But as you say, it's the music industry isn't the way it was back then.
But fair play to him. He seemed like a nice guy and stuff, and he loved it. And he was like McGee. He was quite honest with us. He just went, he said to us, I really like the album. It's just not everything is possible at the moment. So, and I think he had his eye on, at that time it was Klaxons, and the music scene was changing. So you don't really want to bank on somebody who's sort of been aligned with the Libertines. It's all right looking at the Libertines now and going, well, I mean, look at how successful they are now. But certainly there was a lot going on, and some bands were definitely, I mean, Carl was saying it himself, Franz Ferdinand are making it, as you said, you know. And it's easy to look back and scratch your head about that. But
it's mental to think, though, if you did end up at Fierce Panda, obviously there's that Idlewild connection there as well.
that would have been too much for my brain, man. I was like, what the hell?
So, obviously, moving to Spain, what were you doing out there then? Teaching?
Yeah, I got an email from an old friend in Edinburgh who's one of Ben's mates, actually, and well, one of my mates, but that was our link. Anyway, he said, do you know any teachers? And I said, well, I'm a qualified teacher, so I'm qualified as a, so I said, I'm a teacher, yeah. What are you looking for? And he said, just somebody to come out and teach English in Spain and just outside Madrid. And at that point, we'd lived in Scotland for a bit. We'd bought a very cheap flat and tried to do it up and stuff, and found that a bit tricky and stuff. Well, just me and my partner were looking for a way out. So I was like, let's go and do it. Let's go and live in Madrid. So we did that, and that didn't really work. And we'd taken the dog with us. This is a random story. We'd taken the dog with us to Madrid, right? So we'd driven from England or Scotland to Madrid with the dog. The dog wasn't allowed back in the UK for 6 months because you had to keep the dog, some vaccinations thing. Anyway, so my wife said, right, it's not worked out where we are. Why don't we just move to Madrid? Why don't you see what jobs you can get in Madrid, and I'll see what jobs I can get, and we'll just make it work. I was like, okay, fair enough. We did that. So I ended up working in Madrid, and one of the first people I met was Amy Jo. Well, that's not quite true. One of the first person my wife met was Amy Jo. And she didn't tell me who she was. She just said, "Oh, I met somebody who's interested in doing." By this point, we had a young child. She said, "I'm interested in somebody's." I met someone who's interested in doing like a kids sort of kids songs, playing guitar. She's quite musical. She's got a guitar and stuff. And I would invited her to come over on Sunday for Sunday roast or whatever. And I was like, yeah, fine. Yeah. So she came over and we had a bottle of wine and stuff, and just chatted. And I said, so you do, what do you play on the guitar? So she played some songs. I was like, oh, that's great, cool. So why don't you just come around next week if you want? Just make it a weekly thing if you want. We all got on really well and stuff. And then she left. And then my wife went, do you know who that was? And I went, yeah, it was Amy Jo. She seemed all right. She went, do you know who it was? And I went, what are you talking about? And she went, that's Peter's sister. But I think she deliberately not told me because she didn't, quite rightly, didn't want it to be, make it to be any sort of, and Amy, I don't know, maybe that's but Amy Jo ended up being our best friend in Madrid. She's an absolute, a better human being you cannot meet. She's an absolute diamond.
Yeah.
And so we ended up, Amy Jo's, at that time, I mean, see her now on stage, you wouldn't believe it, but like at that time, I mean, I had to force feed her lots of wine to get her to play her own songs. I was like going, have you got songs of your own? And she was going, well, no. I was like, but have you written songs? I said, you have, haven't you? I'm not comfortable with doing it. I said, should we have some more wine and then we'll see how we feel? And at that point, we were both quite big drinkers, but Sunday roast, we went down, we had some more wine, and then it was like, right, get your guitar out, play some songs. And then she played us a couple of songs, and I was like, fantastic. Right, let's go and do them at the open mic night. Oh, don't be ridiculous. So we went down to the open mic night. We were both nervous as anything, because I'd written off ever being playing music again, ever. I would just, at the end of that, I'd almost not brought my guitar to Spain. I was like, I'm done with it. And we played a song at the open mic night. And then she was like, why don't we see if we can do some songs on the tube, on the metro? We did that, and then it was the next thing, she's organising gigs. And I was like, there, she's definitely a Doherty, here we go.
Yeah, but it's a bit like the others as well, that, isn't it? The old playing the songs on the tube.
I'm going to confess that was my idea, because I'd been at the others doing the tube gigs. So and my wife was as well. So she was like, just get on the tube and we'll film it, and we'll get like some of our mates to come down and sing, and we'll just do a filming thing. We ended up doing that one night, and we put it on the web. We had a website at that point, put it on the website and stuff, and it all just kicked off from there. And for months we do like pub gigs, and then it got a bit bigger, and we got offered a few support slots with like visiting bands and stuff. And then the press got hold of the fact that Amy Jo was a Doherty, and I was a bit wary of that. And I think my wife's really smart, despite the fact that she's hooked up with me, but she's very smart. I think she'd seen that Amy Jo, maybe, I shouldn't maybe say this, I don't really want to speak for her, she should say this, but yeah, it was tricky. She was aware. I know that she spoke about this on your podcast. She
kind of spoke the kind of same when she was on, and how she was kind of wary, because she knew what the press would spin it. But
yeah.
I mean, they try it now, but the difference is that there's people don't read the papers anymore.
That's the thing. It was different times.
They had that much power.
That's it. I mean, but the Spanish press were largely. I'll be totally honest. Like we were on the front page of two. It would be like, I'm trying to think what the newspapers would be like. It was El Mundo and El País, but they're like it's sort of like the Guardian and I don't know, but not like proper tabloid sleazy stuff. So they ran two articles, one of which were on the front page, about a Doherty in Madrid playing music and stuff, and that was pretty cool. I was kind of going, we're being taken quite credibly. This is not tittle tattle rubbish. This is, and there's a few questions about her brother, but largely not very much. You get calls from people.
I think, to be honest, though, as well, with Pete, it was Feroy was portrayed back here. I think, like on the continent, Spain and France, for instance. I mean, even now on his solo tour, he does a lot of gigs there. So I think it was pretty much loved in the places. So it was probably best that these were based out there.
I think that's it, and I think that's what made it work. It wouldn't have worked in the UK for sure. Certainly when we ended up later on when we went on tour with Peter in Europe, and we'd opened for him. We went back and played. We went back and played in Madrid one of the nights, and that was the only real time. It was a big venue, and I knew it really well. I'd actually played there in a different band, but as a support for somebody else. But so I knew what it was like and stuff. So I knew the in and outs, and I knew the back door entrance and stuff. So I knew like how to get about this venue. And we played. I can't remember where we played the night before. Somewhere in Spain, but on the west coast not the west coast, the west of Spain near Portugal. Anyway, we're back in Madrid, turning up for the sound check. We just went in, did the sound check, came out, and I came out, and there was loads of British journalists outside. And I went and just had a drink and a coffee or something. I went to go back in, walked past the front of the venue with my shades on and stuff. And I thought, and one guy said to me, "Do you know when Peter's coming?" And I thought, this must be what it's like for Amy Jo. This is what she's totally understandably like. Because I looked at them and thought, I don't want much to do with you. You know, you're after some gossip and you want to try and catch him out and try and get a shot of him.
Yeah. Looking
a bit dry or whatever. But I just I was like, I don't know, and went round and back and went in and stuff. But that was the only time. We were really lucky. A lot of France and Spain, a lot of Spanish couldn't care less as well, which is great, you know. Like they were into what we were doing, and that was what worked for everybody, really.
So on Spotify, anyway, there's the EP, Tonic and Gin EP, which so Tonic and Gin is a song that you've had for that first album that never seen the light of day. So how did you go about choosing that song and the other songs for the EP?
For the Ezra Beats?
Yeah.
I don't know really, just songs that we had really. So that was probably that. Tonic and Gin was second half Mardous.
Mm-hmm.
So that song was kicking about, and we obviously had the Mardous recording and the demo and stuff. So it's just a song I would still play. Like if we went to the open mic nights, or just be around people's flats. In Madrid, it's quite late, isn't it? So like people don't go out till like 11, and then sometimes it's just round to somebody's house and you have a few drinks or whatever, and then you go out and somebody will get the guitar out. So we play. That would just be a song I'd pick up and play. So me and Amy Jo would do that one because it was quite a good one to play acoustically and stuff. I think she was quite into it, but she has had and obviously has a million more great songs, great songwriting and stuff. So increasingly we'd sort of play her songs just as much, if not more. But again, like mad times, because the people in that kind of little folky scene in Madrid at that time, like I think our first proper gig in Madrid, Amy Jo and I went to the venue, and it was a wee bar. It was like a wee stage at the back and stuff. And there was a guy and a girl, and the guy was called Javi. Javi turned up. Didn't know who he was. Didn't know anything about him. Just got chatting to him and stuff. He was from Argentina. He was just moved to Madrid, and then we watched him do the sound check, and I was like, it was totally amazing. I was going, this guy's amazing. Like he was like Simon and Garfunkel style, but like his voice was unreal and stuff. Mm-hmm. Got to know him a bit and invited him round for Christmas dinner because this was a few months later. I said to him, Javi, what are you doing Christmas time? And he's such a gentle, lovely guy. Nothing. I said, well, come round, Jackie and I are doing a Christmas dinner. Do you want to come round and have a Christmas dinner? Yeah, okay, that's really nice of you. So he came round. He's such a quiet guy, and I think Amy Jo came round, had a few drinks and stuff. And then we're sat there having Christmas dinner. I always remember it. And his phone was going. His phone kept ringing. And I said, Javi, is that your family in Argentina? Do you want to speak to them? Go and speak to them. Go and wish them a happy Christmas and stuff. No, it's okay, man. It's okay. And a few more drinks and stuff. And then Javi, I said to him, why don't you go and phone your family? He said, it's not my family. It's my manager in Argentina. And I said, your manager? I said, well, he's not my manager anymore, but he was my manager. I said, all right. What sort of manager? Are you a musician in Argentina? And he went, yeah, a little bit. It turns out not a little bit at all. Like he had got the Christmas #1 in Argentina. I honestly couldn't believe it. And he mentioned it like it was nothing. He went, oh, I said, what was it? Was it good news? Yeah, I've got a song out and it turns out it's done okay. So I said, what do you mean it's done okay? Is it sold some? He said, well, it's Christmas #1 in Argentina. It just blew my mind. I'm going, what is this? This is insane. And Javi ended up doing the link back. And so he produced the Ezra Beats stuff, which is literally went around to his house. He's got a wee studio and stuff, and we'd record some Ezra Beats stuff. And me and Javi became close. And then when I moved back to London after being in Madrid, Javi was doing a little Beatles opera thing, and he was mixing it at Abbey Road. And so one day I got a call from Javi going, I'm coming to London in 2 weeks. Are you free on the Friday? And I thought he was going to say, do you want to go out for a coffee or something? I said, yeah, you want to catch up? Yeah, do you want to come down to the studio? I could do with some help mixing this thing. And I said, yeah, what studio is it? And he goes, it's Abbey Road. I was like, what studio is it? Say that again. So we went down to Abbey Road and we went in Studio 3. I was just going, am I the luckiest cat? How's this happened? This is ridiculous, you know. And he was getting me to sing on bits of that stuff. So I was hearing my voice just on harmonies and stuff. Nothing to do with me. It was always amazing music. But doing a Beatles kind of opera thing on the speakers at Abbey Road Studios and Studio 3, and sort of wandering around in between takes and stuff, and in between listens, just going, life is good, you know. I feel very lucky about that. But I've kept in touch with all these people, you know, and I suppose that goes back to one of your first questions, like, what do you get out of this stuff? Amazing friends.
Yeah.
I've got so much in common and great opportunities, you know.
Well, that's it. I mean, so if you look at like the influence then that you've had on Amy Jo, as you say, like for her, she didn't even want to play those songs initially, and look at her now, fronting a band, front and centre, which it's been in there all that time. Obviously, with her brother being a front man, it's in her genes to be that. But you obviously unlocked something there.
I don't take any credit.
And then fucked off to the UK and
I think
so,
she was.
So what was the reason behind coming back?
I bet she was. Did she mention that? I think she was quite annoyed at me leaving. I take no credit for that, though. She didn't need me to do it. She maybe needed the wine that was on the table that night for the first time, but once that was it, she would have done it though anyway. It would have happened. I was just lucky to get to work with her as it happened. It was a really hard decision to come back. It was a really hard decision, mainly because we'd met a lot of good friends there, and Amy Jo being a great friend. I mean, she's like a godmom to both our kids. You know, she's just adored by them as well. You know, So it was incredibly hard to leave Madrid for that reason. But we just had to make a decision. Like, the kids were at an age of going to school. We had to decide: are we going to stay here forever, and the kids go to school for the next however many years, or are we going to go back? And it was really hard, and it was probably, I felt a wee bit of karma maybe there, because it was the first time that life was forcing itself on me and not me making the decisions. It was really hard. But I'm pleased.
It's hard, isn't it, being an adult, and see, once you get adult things to do, and
it's really
think about somebody else.
Grown-up decisions.
So where did you go? Did you go in London? Because are you Margate now, or are you in between?
Yeah, we moved back to Edinburgh because my wife was offered a job in Edinburgh, which was quite, again, it's one of those life circles. I was kind of going, that's weird. So now we're going back to Edinburgh. My kids are going to grow up Scottish. That all makes sense. We lived in Edinburgh for 6 months and it didn't really work out. Not anything to do with Edinburgh, just the sort of job and stuff. So we moved back to London via a few places. Well, via Dorset mostly. Anyway, back in London. What was the question?
So where does Margate come into it?
Oh, Margate, yeah. So we live in West London. In the flat that when I first met my wife, she bought it years when London was almost affordable to live in. Mm-hmm. So we live in a tiny flat in London. But I just bought a place in Margate when I had any money, because I wanted to own somewhere to get. At the time I was teaching, so the summer holidays we sort of go through and spend in Margate. And it's a wee flat, but it's sort of by the seaside and stuff, so the kids could get out on the sand and have a paddle and stuff. So we mostly in London, but at the weekends we sometimes go through to Margate. So that's where I do my painting and stuff. It's got nice big windows and that. Yeah,
there seems to be a lot of artists in that way.
Yeah, it's an amazing place for art. So obviously it's well known for Turner. Tracy Emin. She literally lives across the road, and I can see her coming out of her house most mornings. So she's bought she's sort of converted a nice house and a sort of old print works into her artist studio. So see Tracy Emin about, not really spoken to her or anything, but I've had to deliver her bills across the road because they always get delivered to us. But it's massive for art. It's absolutely massive. So I wanted to, I sort of gave up on the music, really. I sort of going, that's it. I've definitely had more than a bite of the cherry. I must have sort of swallowed the pit now. I'm done. Which is probably about right, to be fair. But I got into painting again. So I chose sort of Margate to live. We chose Margate to live, but my wife recognised it's loads of wee galleries and stuff. And it's really nice.
Good.
I've since learned that Stewart from the Paddingtons lives in Margate. I learned that about last weekend.
Right. So, I mean, that's so like Margate, that's kind of a tranquil place to do your art, and then all of a sudden you get Paddingtons there, you get the Libertines.
Yeah.
One of my other guests, Simon Mason, he's in Margate as well. Simon Mason was a wild man back in the day with Oasis, isn't he? Oasis
Right, yeah.
drug dealer and stuff
Yeah.
like that. He's now, I don't know how many years sober he is for
Oh,
heroin and all that as well.
I know Simon. Yeah, I know Simon. Yeah, he's he reads poetry and things, doesn't he?
I think so. I mean, he recorded a couple of albums.
Yes, that's right.
The
He's
High Pirates.
that's right. Yeah, I think he's when I've been at gigs when Peter's we're going back a few years. It was a few years ago in Hackney Empire. Peter was doing a gig, and Amy Jo was in town, so she said, "Do you want to come along to the gig?" So we were at Hackney Empire, and we sort of stood side stage, and Simon was reading some poetry, I think, about addiction. Yeah, I think about his job. Yeah, he's a Margate,
brilliant guy, man. And that's, I mean, so has Margate changed then in the time you've been there? And because I mean, they do like big gigs at that Dreamland now as well. No, that seen Richard Prof was playing there last
We've
year.
seen it's changed quite a bit. Not massive amounts. Not like I mean, a Libertines move in there was quite a big change. It was quite a disappointment for me because I was there first, but I'll forgive them. But Dreamland is good. We've seen some good bands at Dreamland. I've seen Gorillas played Dreamland.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably about 10 years ago. Though. That was great. I've seen some decent bands, but they've all sorts on. It's quite a big. They say, what did they say? It's like a Shoreditch on Sea or whatever. It's a bit rough and it's got rough edges, Margate.
I've looked at coming down a couple of times. Obviously, as I say, the missus we're doing every summer at the in-laws down in Crawley.
Yeah.
And the missus' sister, she stays in, where is it, Rainham?
Yeah.
So a couple of times I've looked at the gigs that I've had on Margate and thought, could I get there? But it's further than you think for Crawley. It's a couple of hours in the train, and it's pretty dear and expensive if I was taking the full family for the day. And I think, right, well, maybe I'll just go for the day to Margate, but I'd be talking, I'd be up at like 8 o'clock to get a train, and I'd be back in the train at 10 o'clock at night. It'd be a long day, but I want to go, but I don't know how to make it work. It might actually be cheaper me getting to Margate for Scotland than it would be for Crawley.
It may be if you can get to there's a train. You can get a train from St Pancras or Victoria Station from London, and that's about an hour and 40, and they're not that expensive. You've got to come down, Martin. You can stay at my gaff.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, there's so, as I say, like I've rhymed off all the people. There's so many people that I know down there in that one bit.
Yeah, find a gig you want to go to and just book it. Get the tickets, and then you can stay in my gaff. Just let me know when it is.
Oh, brilliant. I might hot you to that.
Yeah, do, man. Yeah, do.
So, I mean, we're now at 2025. So, at what point was it just because it was the 20th anniversary? How did the conversation start about maybe doing something with the Mardous again?
It was that reason, really. I think I was looking at my phone for something else. I was trying to find a photo of a painting or something a few days ago, and I was looking back, and I went back to like mid 24, so mid last year, and I noticed that I'd started screenshotting a thing that was online from a Mardous video, and I didn't think I'd thought about it that early, but maybe even subconsciously I'd seen something online and gone, the Mardous, yeah, and then maybe later on, but certainly at some point towards the end of last year, I realised that 2005 is the year that we signed to Poptones, and that was, although it wasn't the year we formed, that was early 2004 really, but that was the year that it was the sort of significant number, I suppose, when the single came out. And I'd spoke to Ben about it, and I spoke to Ben a few times about stuff before, and he'd been doing other stuff. He's really busy, Ben. He does a lot of music stuff, and he just sort of said, maybe in the future and stuff. And I said to him, it's 20 years, do you want to do any gigs or anything? He said, well, it'd be cool to do something. And it just really quickly, I've been writing my diaries from now about what happens as I go, and so I've it sound like some sort of obsessive maniac, but I've been reading like the diaries from January this year, and like the journey from just going. It'd be cool to do some gigs to like Tom going from the Paddingtons, Tom Paddington going, well, we're doing a gig for 20 years thing. Why don't you come up and support us? So from that to other stuff that people going to the others doing the gig saying, well, why don't you come down and we're doing a 20th? And it's amazing the amount of bands that are doing it now. I feel a bit cheated actually. I'm like, that was my idea, but of course nobody knew. Everybody's doing it because it's a thing. But on a
the thing is, it's funny with that because obviously you end up with the fan base is there, like, so probably similar to yourself and all the other bands. Like at some point, he's get away and he's have a family, and you can't do the same amount of stuff. The same way your fan base, if they're the kind of same age as you, they go and they have a family and they don't go to as many gigs and stuff like that. Because I know that I dipped at it for a while. My oldest is turning 18 this year, and my youngest will be 12. So maybe in the last 5 years, I've started going to gigs again, and I go to as many gigs as I did back then. But there was that period that I missed out on.
That's
so
it.
That's the thing. So you just get away and you come back. Your fan base is still there.
So there you go. So Martin, so you've got kids certainly the same generation as well. I've got 15 and 17, nearly 15, nearly 17. So that's exactly it. So you've hit the nail on the head there. So even when we went to see, we went to play with the Paddingtons, we started watching them sound check and stuff. And just what was lovely about that, they'll probably hate me saying this because, I mean, there's a band that we toured with, a proper punk band, you know, real punk band in every sense of the word. Loved watching them from the side of the stage, still do 100%. But seeing them as some of them as dads with the kids running around and stuff, and just thinking that's the difference.
Mm.
And it's really nice to see. And I'm having my kids at the gig. My youngest came along and filmed some of the gig and stuff. And
yeah,
I think
I've seen that's mental.
Yeah.
And you think that what was it you posted on Instagram that your kid was filming the gig, and the last time you played, she wasn't even born. Is that's mental.
Last time, which she'd never seen the Mardous. She'd seen me doing little bits and bobs, mostly acoustic stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I think she was kind of understandably, she's like shaking her head, scratching her head, kind of looking, going, where's this from? And but that was part of the reason of doing it, really, because I think we felt the time 2005 when we had the single out, it wasn't until 2006, towards the end of the Mardous, really, that even then that people started turning up at gigs with phones. So there's very little documented about it, and I sort of felt invisible. And certainly outside of, or even inside of the circle that we were moving in, there's people that I still meet and said, oh, I sort of remember the Mardous, but yeah, it's kind of forgotten you'd played with this band, or you'd done a tour with the Paddingtons, or you'd had a single out, and I just wanted to put us a wee bit on them. I felt a wee bit cheated by the lack of kind of record on it, and that, despite the fact I was sat there with like 3 or 4 diaries on it, like of everything that happened. I read through the diaries thinking, yeah, that did happen. That actually did happen. All that stuff happened, and that's maybe what kickstarted it. I read some of the diaries to Ben. We had a night. He's just moved to Bristol, Ben, and we knew he was moving to Bristol out of London and stuff. And just before he went, we went out for a few beers. Ben doesn't drink. We went out for a few beers. He insists on calling it that, so I'm going to watch this probably. Went out for a few beers, and I took the diaries one night, and I was a bit nervous about it. Not nervous, a wee bit anxious about it. I said, and he came in. He said, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. Right, what are you drinking? I've got this, got that." He sat down, and I put it on the table, and he goes, "What's that?" And when it's the diaries from the Mardous time. Do you want to read? Do you want to open it? Do you ever read? And then we met about 3 or 4 times after that in the pub and just read through the diaries and was going. And I'd read 10 minutes and we'd be having a few drinks and stuff, and then I'd close it and I'd go, right, what have you been up to anyway? What's happening? And he'd be like, open it, carry on, come on, let's find out more. So for both of us, maybe that was the thing that made us both realise, okay, there's enough to reopen it, and we're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to have maybe just celebrate what happened, and get some friends together and have a wee bash at it, a wee party again and stuff, and have some fun,
And obviously, so that culminates then on with releasing music. So January 31st, you released Tonic and Gin, followed up a couple of weeks later with Revolution Over the Phone, and then the start of April, Acrobat, just ahead of the gig with Paddingtons. So how was that then, playing that gig, like your first gig back?
It was really great. It was really great. And my wife asked me after the gig, she was like, how did it feel? And I said, honestly, it felt normal, which is the weirdest last thing I thought it would feel. I think maybe it's like that muscle memory thing. Like I hadn't played the vast majority of those songs, certainly on bass. I hadn't played any of the songs on bass for 20 years because I picked up my guitar again. And I'm not a bass player. I just played bass because we didn't have a bass player really. So, but it was incredible how quickly my fingers remembered the patterns and the stuff. I couldn't quite fathom it out because I was going, right, oh, it must be, I can't think what the next note is. My fingers would just do it on a run, just do the thing. So my fingers had it. But it was the same with the gig. Genuinely was. I was nervous. I was a bit anxious getting up there. First song in. And sound check, it's just like the same things were going wrong, the same things needed fixed. It felt great. It was really, really good. And
what was the reception like for the audience?
Really, 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 really good. I mean, I suppose what helped us say yes to that. I mean, it was never in doubt saying yes to the gig. But what was a bonus about that was it was in Hull.
Mm-hmm.
We'd always been warmly received. And after the gig, I went out. We went to an after show and stuff, and just chatting to people. People just not, and the people at Hull, like the people at most places, just love the music. So that place, the Adelphi in Hull, absolutely brilliant. I spoke to like Andy, who put us on before in Hull at a different venue, and loads of people just coming up saying, "You probably don't remember me, but," and I'd be like, "I remember you. Thanks for coming down and saying hi," and all that stuff. And it just felt really lovely, and no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
We're all a bit older. Do you know what I mean? It's not,
and I mean, it's
we might
funny
hit a wrong note. Who cares? It's like.
So I had Sam Herlihy for Hope of the States on
Right,
the podcast.
yeah.
So I had him on maybe the start of last year, and
I need to listen to that one as well.
when I spoke to him, I was messaging him on Instagram. I've been trying to get a hold of him for years, and he finally replied on Instagram, and I says, "Well, I want to have you in the podcast," and he's like, "Nobody's interested. Nobody wants to hear about me." I mean, he'd obviously 2006 he stopped, and he opened a restaurant, and he's done that for 20 years.
Right. Okay.
And like we spoke, and there was no kind of inclination at that point that there was going to be any return for Hope of the States. And I spoke on another podcast that will be out next week, and I spoke about it. I'm pretty sure that the conversation me and Sam had went some way to him reforming the band, and they played gigs towards the end of last year, December. So I seen them in Glasgow. They played London, Manchester, Glasgow, and again, like the reception they got.
Yeah.
And Sam didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
To the point where I think they released a couple of new tracks, and I don't know what's going on, whether they're working on like an album, I think now.
That's brilliant, Martin. But that's testament to yourself and to people that are doing the same sort of things that you're doing, which is music fans like us, like we all are, keeping up with the times and putting these things out in the way that we can do it now, and recognizing it. Because I think that's the thing, like people of our age, if I can say that, like they still want to go to gigs. It's more than ever.
Yeah,
I think it's like you said, maybe certainly for some of us, the kids get a wee bit older, and we've got that time again. And why did we? I mean, like me, I'm kind of going, loved watching the Paddingtons. I'm thinking, why have I stopped going to so many gigs? I don't really understand why I stopped, because I still enjoy it exactly more than I used to,
Yeah. So obviously, I mentioned earlier on about Idlewild. So a couple of months ago, tickets were on sale. The kind of gigs seem to get announced all at the one time. So I think on the same day, I bought tickets for Idlewild, Cast, and the Paddingtons.
Fantastic.
So the Paddingtons are playing Glasgow in October.
October, yeah.
So I was just wondering if there's any particular chance of seeing a Mardous support with the Paddingtons in Scotland. That would be ideal.
I've talked to Tom about those gigs. It's not. I don't really want to say too much about those gigs because we talked about it initially, but this was several months ago. And he said you can. He won't mind me saying, but it's not. It's more about the logistics. But he said if you want to do them, then great. But since that, I think I'm allowed to say this. If this is not out for a few weeks, I think I'm allowed to say this. I might have to ask you to take it out if I'm not. No, I think this has been announced on Tuesday, so in 2 days. But we're going to be doing with the Paddingtons. We're going to be touring a wee bit, doing a few dates with the Cribs. So it'll be the Cribs and the Paddingtons and ourselves. And one of the dates is in. I hope I'm not going to get short for this. One of the dates is in Glasgow.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah. So I'm going to say to you, keep your eyes peeled. I think I was speaking to the Cribs this week, and they said Tuesday it's going to be announced and stuff. So
I did see somewhere somebody saying about an announcement coming soon. Anyway, so
it might have been me. I've been a wee bit, but I'm being really careful.
If there's nothing announced before I put the podcast out, then I'll take us out. But
okay, that's fine. Okay, it will be because it's going to be on Tuesday. I just don't want. It's not for me because I just for them. I don't want to ruin.
You know what? As well, see the Crabs, one of my all-time favourite bands, and I've never seen them live.
Is that right?
So
fantastic.
That's an absolute dream, man.
So I think it's Glasgow. Well, I think we're looking at it's literally been this afternoon. I've had texts about it. I think we are going to play so it's on I think it's the 21st of July is the Glasgow gig. I think we're going to play a gig in Edinburgh on the 20th as a wee warm up for us before we hit the tour.
21st of July when this year.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that could be the worst timing ever. Actually.
Oh no, how come?
Did I think I'll be doing your way then?
No. All right. Well, I think we're doing 21st in Glasgow, 22nd. I think this is definitely to be confirmed because I haven't had the venues announced yet. But I think it's 22nd is Hull and 23rd is Lincoln. I think.
Right.
So it's the Cribs, the Paddingtons, and us. And we're doing. I think because the Cribs are doing we've got lovely connections going way back with the Cribs. So they were one of the first bands that we got to know quite well back in 2004 and had a sort of mutual respect. Love the Cribs, 3-piece as well, and we were a 3-piece and same sort of influences and all that. And that's when we'd been offered the Paddingtons gig. I still had a random, occasional, more so rarely these days, but little texts or whatever with the Cribs. But I noticed they were watching the diaries every single day. There'd be diary reads I do on Instagram. So I just sent them a message going, hey lads, how's it going and all that. Just if you guys are playing this year, we're looking to get out on the road. Thinking that's a bit cheeky because I know them as well. I don't want to be too, I was thinking I don't want to.
Yeah, but you don't actually do that.
And they just replied saying we're not doing much this year. And I just replied saying no, that's fine. Oh, thanks for replying, guys. Best of luck if you're recording or whatever. But only in the last sort of month or so they got in touch saying. Right, here are just out of the blue, here are the dates, just let us know if there's any you want to do. And I was like, probably do them all if that's all right. That's just amazing. It's really very good of them to offer us old timers. But I mean, I've been going to those gigs anyway. Like, I love the Cribs and the Pad.
It's a dream lineup. It's a dream lineup. I'm waiting with bated breath to see the announcement and hopefully I can make it work somehow. It's
Are you on holiday down at that point? Or something?
aye, so I think we go down on the 14th for 2 weeks. But it might be that we need to come back. It might need to be like a week and a half or whatever, something like that.
Right. Well, what you can down to
Probably, aye.
yeah.
The total opposite end. I'll make it work. Don't worry about it.
Well, we're coming up the other way. So at the moment we're looking at like how we're going to make it logistically, like transport and all that. So well, you could grab a lift up if you're going up that way. You might have to help us cart some gear around. But,
So, the last part of the podcast, obviously, time for heroes. I asked my guests to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner. Why they're your heroes, and what would you cook them? And when I say heroes, it can be any walk of life. It can be dead or alive. It can be musicians, people that have inspired you, footballers, sportsmen, whatever you want, whatever you consider a hero. But
have you ever done yours, man?
Somebody put me in the spot once, but I mean, what I do say is, I mean, this podcast, I've been over 100 episodes. Every day on my podcast is in some way a hero of mine. That's why I bothered to ask them to come on.
Legend. It's a really good question. It's almost too good. I was thinking a wee bit about it this afternoon once I got you.
Gemma Clark, actually. Gemma Clark for Baby Shambles on very early on. She ended up picking about 15. You couldn't narrow it down to the 4.
Okay, that makes me feel better because I'm struggling. I think like if it was going to be anybody dead or alive, you would. I would go for. I love art, so it would maybe be artists, to be honest. So I think on my boring answer is probably going to be. I went to Monet's house 2 years ago in France and saw where he painted and stuff, and that was just incredible. So like Monet and Matisse, and I don't know, maybe like Francis Bacon. I went to saw his exhibition in London. He's a bit of a nutter. I'd be quite interested in what he's got to say. Like amazing painter, amazing artist, like Lucian Freud and stuff like that. So that'd be my boring answer. But from a music sort of more music perspective, like my favorite band are the Breeders, I think.
Right.
So maybe do you know the Breeders? Do you know Kim and Kelly
Kim
Deal? Yeah, the twins.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would be great to have on because I think they'd be a good laugh. And I think if I had them to my house, I'd maybe have to invite Kurt Cobain as well because they know him, but also it'd be amazing to chat to him.
You know what? As I say, like over 100 episodes, and Kurt Cobain's very rarely picked.
Is that right?
Which is surprising when you think of how influential he was in the short kind of time that he was kind of.
I was a bit obsessed with it, but also like Martin, I've gone back and like because nowadays you can watch anything, can't you? So like, I watched some interviews with him on like YouTube and stuff, and just think like I'm quite fascinated by him as a person as well, because like he was obviously had his struggles with substance and abuse and stuff like that as well, and a bit it was a sort of hedonist, but you know, and ended up, you know, tragically, you know, killing himself quite gruesomely, and yet the only car he would drive was the Volvo because it was the safest car on the road. Stuff like that. I find it's like John Lennon, isn't it? It's that sort of a perpetual sort of oxymoron. Like it's two different people.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you see, like for something like that, for to take your own life is there's something's kind of went in your head for you to make that decision. So it's like how he's lived his life, as you say, like he wants to drive that car because it's safe. So it's no something where he's wanted to. He doesn't want to die, but in that instant, something's happened that's made him kind of do what he's done. So
but I think for me, that's not to become fixated on that part of him, but I think a fascinating human being in in many different ways.
Yeah,
And it's someone like
see like the love that it had for Teenage Fan Club.
Yeah,
Like, things like that's
that
man.
was it. And like the Vaselines and the meat puppets. Like I got into the meat puppets through Nirvana, and I totally love his. And he loved the Beatles as well. When I found out that he loved the Beatles, I was really surprised because I thought, like, I love the Beatles, but I thought, like, he won't admit to loving the Beatles because it's not very cool. But he didn't care about cool. He cared about music and like what he.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which is what I think, which probably made him even cooler, right? So yeah, I think a fascinating character. I bet everybody says the Beatles, but it's hard not to, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. John Lennon's probably the one that's picked the most out of them. I mean, if I was picking, mine would be John Lennon over McCartney, but maybe laterally for the Get Back documentary come out, there's a lot of people pick Paul McCartney. I think the way he's portrayed in that.
It'd be quite interesting. My dog's here, sorry. What you doing? It'd be quite
a young band on couple of episodes ago, and the four of them, a band from Manchester, 4 young boys. I think there's 3 of them are still doing their GCSEs. And so I says, like, how are you going to do it? So they're like, we'll all pick one each. And like, literally, the drummer picked Ringo Starr, the bass player picked Paul McCartney, the singer picked John Lennon. And it went to the other guitarist, and I thought he's going to pick George Harrison. And I thought that it was going to be so contrived, and he picked Gary Barlow. I thought that's really funny.
I reckon they stitched you up there. Gary Barlow.
Yeah, so that was the twist in that episode.
That's brilliant.
I mean, like, you can't, like, if the Beatles are an influence, they're an influence. You can't help it. They were.
Yeah. I mean, to me,
to people.
To me, any of them would just be ridiculous. Well, I mean, Ringo's cool, but maybe the other 3 first. But you know,
yeah.
But maybe George Martin would be cool because he would know everything about what I'd be interested to know about the Beatles, which is their musical side. And their personalities and stuff. That'd be pretty. Maybe you could have George Martin as one, and then you don't have to have the other 4. But no, the Beatles are amazing, man. It's a brilliant question because it's really hard to answer, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. I probably, if I asked you again next week, you could probably
100%. And I was also thinking that if you asked, like, you could say what was kind of what you touched on. You could say Paul McCartney, but Paul McCartney when? Like now, Paul McCartney, which is amazing, yes, but actually, maybe I'd rather meet him in sort of 1969. Do you know what I mean? When everything's fresh in his mind from the Beatles time, or 1980 when he just finished. I don't know.
It depends, though, if it's the real Paul McCartney. Can you mind seeing all the Paul McCartney's dead stuff? They made a full documentary about that.
So would that be the first one to ask for? Can I have Paul McCartney, and then the new Paul McCartney? And can I have Neil Armstrong and then the guy who played Neil Armstrong in the studio when they couldn't get the thing to take off?
Yeah, brilliant choices.
You're not going to put that out, are you? This is what Ross chose.
No. I like the artists as well because that's a bit different. There's no many artists get chosen, so it's nice to have something a bit different.
I'd love to. When I went to Monet's house, like, it was. I didn't think I would be affected by it, honestly, as much as I was. It was totally amazing, and so he would definitely be. Yeah, but then I wouldn't be able to speak to him. Are you allowed to have a translator, or does that count as one of your 4?
No, you can listen. You've went well over the 4. You're probably in Gemma Clark territory, but I'll let you have them all anyway.
Right, Gemma could come as well if she wants.
And what would you cook for all these folk? I'd be for some sort of Spanish tapas with your time out there in Madrid.
Yeah, but we're all like, my partner's pretty much vegan, and my kids are veggies, and I refuse to be pigeonholed. But I'm probably a vegetarian, so it's kind of hard actually going back. Spain's all ham on, isn't it? And I bet Amy Jo talked about ham on. That's one of her songs, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something safe. Maybe like a vegan Scotch pie. Do you get them yet? That'd be quite cool.
Yeah.
You get a vegan Scotch pie?
Yeah. You'll get anything in Greg's.
Yeah, that's true.
The really intelligent guests, what they usually do is they pick like a chef as one of their heroes, and then they pick the chef to cook the dinner.
They've listened to what's it called? Desert Island Discs. Clearly, that's a cheat. That's cheating.
But an absolute pleasure speaking to you. It's amazing. I mean, it's nearly 2 hours we spoke, and it flew by, man. It's been nice reminiscing. It's been nice watching the diaries on your Instagram, which I'll post a link to that for people to kind of come and check you out.
Thanks, Martin. It's
really
really
to your Spotify.
Yeah,
stuff like
that's really kind of you.
But
I've been doing those diaries for every day this year, and there's not enough to get to the end of the year, but there's still a few tales to tell. So, but listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, so and keep in touch.
Yeah, I
we trip down
will.
to Margate, give us a shout. Yeah,
I certainly will. But for coming on the day, absolute pleasure, Russ. Thank you very much.
Lovely to chat. It was my pleasure too. Thanks, mate. Thanks a lot.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes Podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes Podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.